foundational education to those students that want to become certified wellness coaches and to prepare them to be in the field. Next slide, please. So why should you participate? As Ben already stated, we are in desperate need of a representative workforce that is representative of the communities they're serving. And as you all know, coming from the community colleges, the community colleges serve the most diverse student body in California. And again, that's why the community colleges are in a perfect position to provide this education and to build a workforce that is reflective of the communities they serve. And with there are nearly 80,000 community college students that transfer to UC or CSUs each year, which again provides a clear pathway for students to go from an associate's degree to a bachelor's degree to a master's degree should they choose to do so. Next slide, please. So things to consider for the community colleges. The content we'll go over in the core requirements that were selected in the topics were vetted with industry professionals and stakeholders. So these courses were not chosen randomly, and they were again vetted once again last year again to make sure that we had everything right and that they also aligned with the social work and human services programs, addiction studies programs, etc. So the idea is to have the community colleges, we're focusing on transferable credits and stackable certificates. Again, this is what the community colleges do well. They focus on workforce readiness, and they provide experiential learning for the students. And then also have the flexibility to revise curriculum and align it to the wellness coach. One, core competencies and minimum course requirements. And then, of course, it's prepare students to meet the wellness coach core services and competencies. Next slide, please. So how to become a designated education program, that's why we're here. So you will be provided with a guide and a form to complete so that you can review what those required core courses are, topics, and the complementary requirements outlined in Form 1, which we'll go over shortly. Determine which courses that you already have in place that align with the requirements, as well as to identify gaps. As Ben stated earlier, there is funding available to help meet those gaps. It doesn't mean that you're disqualified from becoming a designated education program, but really we're here to support programs in closing those gaps so that they can become designated education programs. And again, here, identifying those resources that you all need, whether it be an academic counselor, someone to do marketing, faculty time to, revise curriculum. So those are the pieces you'll be completing in Form 1, and then you'll submit that form to HCI for approval. Next slide, please. So this form is very small. I'm not sure how much you can all see here, but the first part of the form is just basic demographics. The name of your school, the title of your degree, any certificates you may have, who's the primary contact, secondary if you have one. And the primary contact should be really somebody who, has, whether it be a dean or a lead faculty that we are able to communicate with along this process. Again, we want some demographics about your current students, how many you have, how many you participate graduating the next few years, and then how is your program access? Is it in person, online, or is it a hybrid? And this last piece here is why is it that your community college is interested in or would like to become a designated education program? We feel it's important because we, this is a big endeavor, a partnership, a collaboration, and so we all want to make sure that we're in alignment together. Next slide, please. Okay, here comes the busy slide. So as you can see, this is just a piece of the form that you'll be seeing, a template really to help you provide us with the information to support that you are in fact aligned and you meet the required uh, pieces to become a designated education program. So you'll see in the previous slide that Ben showed, there's been a change in one of the courses. I think the other one said human behavior, but the 4 core courses is Introduction to Psych, Introduction to Social Work, um, Introduction to Case Management, and Child and Adolescent Behavior. So when you're going through, maybe your courses may have a different title, but you know that they meet these requirements. So we're asking that you provide us with your equivalent title and a course outline. And on the other side, how many units, as well as any course objectives that you can share with us. Again, this is just demonstration that your program meets these requirements. The second piece here where it says wellness coach core services, these services, or actually topics, if you will, and as well as the courses are backwards mapped into what the wellness coaches will be providing as far as services in the community, and what their core requirements are in order to be employed. So again, all that information was taken and aligned with the topics and the course content here. So you'll see some of the courses such as screening or integrating self into behavioral health field. These sorts of topics are then on the next slide, you'll see how they're aligned with the core competencies and topics for the Wellness Coach 1. Next slide, please. So again, here demonstrates, so you can see screening is 1B, and then you'll have this additional content at the end of the requirement form that will show you then 1B meets the requirement of the wellness coach that needs to be able to support youth completing behavioral health screenings, answer questions, hand off screening to behavioral health professionals, etc. So that directly relates with one of the core competencies that the wellness coaches need to be able to provide in the workforce. Next slide, please. Here's where we're asking you all to identify your curriculum gaps. So, for example, coaching and counseling frameworks, just bullet by bullet, what are the gaps that you see after completing the form? And the next slide will be, next slide, please. Sorry, the next portion of the form will be, okay, now that you've identified those gaps, what is it that you need to resolve those gaps, and what are you requesting as far as funding resources to address those things? So you'll see here, it asks you to give your examples, what is your next step in closing that gap, and what are the related projected costs that you all think you may need in order to meet that. Again, it's not to add additional work to your workload, but how can we then support you with some funding in order to make that happen? And I don't know that I said this earlier, but really the Wellness Coach 1 is not meant to really to take over any kinds of support that maybe a licensed professional may take or someone with a higher degree, but it's really meant to support and as an entry point into the behavioral health pathway, because ultimately the idea is, ultimately the state needs more licensed mental health professionals. So again, just providing an entry point, not only into the career, but into the education. Next slide, please. All right. So I went through that pretty quickly. I'm going to hand it over to Ben to facilitate our question and answer.
Wonderful. Thank you, Irene, for going through all of that awesome information. And now we have an opportunity to go through some Q&A. So it's a pretty small group, so we're going to be pretty informal about this. If you have any questions about the content, go ahead and raise your hand, and then we will go and call on you, and you can come off camera and unmute and ask your question. So if there's any questions for us, please feel free to raise that hand. And if you're not familiar with Teams, it's up on the top toolbar. You'll see a little hand that says raise. Here. Yeah, go ahead, Benjamin.
Thanks so much for this great information. I have a couple of questions about the curriculum alignment component. Is there, so there's, you stated there were 60 units that were thought of as a part of the curriculum. Is that 60 units inclusive of general education? And I'll just stop there for that first question, but I've got a couple.
Yes. So the core courses and topics are really, just that, like they may meet like your first core requirements within the degree program. But the additional, yes, the requirement in order for someone to become a certified wellness coach is really to have that associate's degree. So yes, it includes, the 60 units are inclusive of the GE and any other requirements your program has.
Okay. And then there was discussion of, or it stated that there was a bachelor's pathway in development. And so we're talking about the first 2 years, but we also have the community college baccalaureate program. So is there discussion of there being like transfer model curriculum designed out eventually for this program to the CSU system, or is there discussion around developing this out as a community college baccalaureate pathway?
Ben, I'll let you take that one. So you can speak to the CSU component.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, interesting. I'm seeing a together mode thing happening here. So at this point, we're really focusing on the associates level with our community colleges, and then the 4-year with our CSUs for a couple reasons. One is doing the whole model curriculum. In a lot of conversations, we know requires a very lengthy and extensive process that has to go through. And, Irene, you might even have more information about this, but, going through the whole approval, regional and then statewide connected articulation processes. And we connect with the chancellor's offices, and just like the lift to do so was was just a very heavy lift. And also in terms of transferability and really looking at if individuals want to continue on into their master's programs, MSWs, we are specifically aligning right now with our Bachelor's of Social Work programs for that Wellness Coach 2 education, because there is such a strong alignment with them now. And there already is an inherent upward transferability into those respective master's programs and above. So in terms of our stepping stone and our pathways right now, the structure that's in place is best suited for more segmenting the Wellness Coach 1 with our associates, with our community colleges, and then our 4-year with our CSUs. That said, we understand that as more information comes in, that our approach might need to be refined as we learn more, as we discover new opportunities. And what we're doing right now is marching towards getting this off the ground, getting this implemented, and really ensuring that we are creating the supply and then also making sure there's employment for them. But we know we're going to have to continue to learn as this actually exists in the workforce. So we very much as HCI know that there's going to be a lot of incoming data, a lot of information. So I don't want to say that it's a hard no, or that we're absolutely closed to future iterations of what this looks like. Right now, this is our current structure and what we're sticking to, but we absolutely understand that we need to be adaptable to figure out what works best to make sure that this is successful and also meets the need.
Thanks.
Of course.
And the only thing I would add is the CSUs are tasked with, preparing students to then become Wellness Coach 2s. The second part. So again, it's not that they would be repeating classes, but it's just, it's a clear transfer over to, let's say, a BSW program. And then they would, upon graduation, they would automatically meet those requirements for Wellness Coach 2 to become certified at the state.
All right. Well, Ben, thank you for those questions. I see we have another hand. Connie, go ahead.
Yes. Hi, guys. How are you? Good morning. Thank you so
Hi.
much. Great presentation. Couple of questions and a comment. Ben, in regards to the Wellness Coach 2, I just want you to know that in our region, UC San Marcos was very interested in the program. If you want to work on the Wellness Coach 1, I think they will be thrilled to know that one of the community colleges is willing to do it. And I also see Corinne from the region. So I'm more than happy to connect both of you and have a meeting to see how we can make this, a program that it will be transferable into Wellness Coach 2. So just having said that, so my question is actually about the hours that it will be needed. So I think it was said the field experience, we're looking at 400 hours of supervised experience, including direct services. Can you just expand on that? How do you see students getting those 400 hours experience? Would that be throughout the 2 years of receiving the AA degree? And where exactly do you anticipate these students getting those 400 hours?
Thank you, Connie. Great question. I'm so glad that you brought that up. So the 400 hours are, the students need minimum of 150 to become registered wellness coaches, and then post graduation, they can collect the additional hours that they need. Throughout the 2 years, anything that is relatable, whether it be volunteer hours, their field service hours or practicum hours that they take within the program, any combination will work towards, as long as it's signed off by somebody who is able to state, the hours that they've completed. Even in working, being creative, like if a student is, let's say, an ambassador, wellness ambassador, or a mental health navigator on one of the community college campus, those hours also count. So again, the minimum requirement is 150 in order to become a registered wellness coach, but then completing the additional 400 hours is acceptable to complete after the degree. Did I answer your question, Connie?
Yeah. Sorry, Irene, I was muted. Yes, thank you so much. Because, for our region, in order to get some of those clinical placement hours or internship hours, we need to have agreements in place, MOUs in place. So since I work in the region in terms of clinical placements, internship, externship placements, I would just kind of like to have my radar out there to start kind of introducing the idea that we will have students that will need this type of hours. So thank you for that.
Of course.
Yes, go ahead, Lori. Or, I'm sorry, Laura. And Laura, if you are talking, you are on mute.
Got it. I don't usually use Teams, Microsoft Teams. So I'm sorry. It took me a minute there. Thank you so much, Irene. It's so good to see you. I'm really excited about this opportunity. I have questions. The first one is piggybacking on Connie's question. We will need somebody who is kind of like signing up in those hours and following up with the students and their internships, right? That is something that it will be kind of a added tasks to our faculty. And I'm wondering if some of those funds that you mentioned before could be used to pay, for an internship coordinator. That's how we call that, right? So that's my first question. Could we use some of those funds to pay faculty to do that?
I would imagine, yes. I mean, if you are in need of someone to be able to track those hours, because that's just a missing gap in order to have someone then complete those hours, I would imagine that would be something that would be supported by this grant. And Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're asking you all to identify your gaps, whether it be, like I said, this additional coordinator or a counselor or even somebody to put together marketing for you all. So we're looking to the community colleges individually as experts as far as what you all need to close that gap. And Laura, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe Chabot has the field experience course embedded into your program, right?
Yes, but I'm not quite sure. So, but it's a little bit different. Students don't have to complete the 400 hours. So I think that
yes.
my request, my concern is that we will need somebody who actually does very much hands-on follow-up on these specific students, you know, because
right.
What happens is some of those internships do not work for them for whatever reason, right? Transportation.
Right, then you need somebody to help. Mm-hmm.
Right, to be there and to continue to offer support in, you know, continuous basis. You see, so
yes.
that's so. Thank you. That was one of my questions. My second.
Remember, the first portion is just 150 hours once they graduate. So I know that's still a heavy lift, but just to hopefully put people at ease that the expectation is not that in 2 years they'll have completed 400 hours in those first 2 years of community college, ideally, maybe 3. So it's just the minimum, but in total it'll be 400 hours.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for the clarification. And then the second question I have is, when are all these forms due? And the other, I also want to let you know that I can look at the curriculum. I teach some of the classes that are part of this curriculum, but I will need, you know, some time to put it through our curriculum process. So I can, you know, like I can perhaps submit some of those changes this semester, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be approved this semester, but it might be approved next semester. But we still offer all the core classes that you have there. We still offer them. So I'm wondering, when are these forms due? And that's the first question. And then after students go through, you know, take all these classes, and who gives them the certification? How does that work? Thank you.
So I'll leave Ben to answer your question about when things are due. I'm thinking it's a rolling process at this point, but go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, exactly that. We are marching towards, as much as we can, standing up programs beginning fall 2024. We know that that is a short timeline and that those timelines do not always work. We know summer sessions happen. So that's a goal. And we want you to be able to go through it and begin to implement and offer this as soon as you're able to pull all of your, put all your ducks in a row. So by no means, if you don't meet the fall 2024 deadline, are you no longer in contention. We just want to continue to have discussions with you and have it be on a rolling basis. And in terms of the resource allocation, we're going to have a few phases of grant cycles that's actually going to be offered through the Foundation for California Community Colleges. They're going to be the one that's going to be partnering with us to administer grants. So the funds that you're requesting and that you're putting in to fill in some of those gaps, that'll kind of help us inform what will go through that award amounts as we go through the grant process. We haven't yet developed that out. Our first one will probably be starting to be offered as soon as April, but then we're going to have 2 more cycles after that, so that we can continue to focus on that, those that are a little bit behind our initial phase 1 timeline. There was a second question about certification. So the interesting thing too is, while you're going through the process of getting all of this aligned, you can still have students that are graduating that are from our kind of short list of programs apply for certification as soon as they graduate and meet those minimum requirements. So we're kind of in 2 different phases of certification because we know it's going to take us a while to get these HCI designated education programs up and running. Right now, because certification is currently live, we are also accepting those that are going through a short list of degrees in the interim. Eventually, we're only going to offer HCI designated education programs as the programs that will qualify for certification, but that's going to be a several-year process. So for those, as soon as they graduate, they can actually go to our website, and there's a specific apply for certification portal that they'll go through, and then they have to upload their transcripts, some letters verifying their hours as well as their competencies and skill set, a few other forms and documents, but it's meant to be a fairly easy certification process. So they can begin getting certified now. And in our final slide, we have links to our website. It's cawellnesscoach.org, and they can apply directly through HCI. So it's not the institution that's going to be certifying them. They're just providing the foundation to make sure that they meet the requirements in terms of a degree and then the baseline minimum for their field and work experience. Hopefully that clarifies.
The only thing I will add to that is, and I don't think I brought this point up, is that, again, if there are curriculum gaps, if there's pieces, we have put together what we're calling conditional designated education programs until you've met all those requirements, and then you become a full designated education program. So again, just we want to be able to keep you in the process. And, you know, you're very close or whatever it might be for your community college. You know, we want to encourage you to keep going, you know, to become designated. So we want to support you in that process.
Great. And then just to be clear then, we will get the funding if we need anything to cover our gaps, etc., through you, but we don't have to apply for those grants, correct, Ben? We identify the gaps or what we need, and then that will come through you, right?
Yeah, so I mean, for those that are already largely aligned, it may just be a restructuring of some of what they already offer. So it could be, oh, we need to make sure in our program map, this is the elective that we select instead of this elective. So if it's not required, that is a much easier lift. We can, you know, go through the process and get you designated much quicker. If there are resource gaps if there are gaps that need resources to fill them in, then it'll be working with Irene, identifying all those, having, it'll make more sense when we send out these documents because you'll be able to see in real time what she went through, that you'll just identify all that. And then as soon as our grant cycle launches with Foundation CCC, then there'll be an application process, essentially aligning what you put on that form into the application just to make sure that it matches. We can give it a quick, yep, this aligns with what they're requesting. We'll go ahead and send the funds through. The reason we're doing through Foundation CCC is they can be our kind of intermediary that disperses funds. Otherwise, HCI needs to go through separate contracts with every single institution, which we just cannot do. So it's HCI is issuing the funds, Foundation CCC is issuing the funds on HCI's behalf.
Okay, great. And yeah, and I think you answered the question. You're going to send us all these forms, correct? And if we have any questions, do we reach out to Irene or before we kind of submit the forms? Would it be okay to meet with anybody from you just to make sure that the forms are doing okay?
Yes, that's what I'm here for, is to support you in that process. And if you want to meet before then, or to go through it again with other faculty in your program, that's also, that's what I'm here for. The other piece I wanted to mention, as you have your program maps, there may be like, okay, as a program, we've decided here's the 6 core courses that you all need to take. And then you can choose 2 from list A, 2 from list B. So you may just add, let's say, the child and adolescent behavior course is missing. So, you know, it would be a matter of the counselor knowing, okay, if you take this course instead of this course, then you will become eligible to become certified at a state level. So it's just that guidance. It's not to create a whole new course. It's really to align with what you already have.
Great. Thank you so much. This is very exciting for me because we offer all of this, and it's very exciting to have this opportunity for our students. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions while we have the HCI team and Irene here? And of course, if you wake up in the middle of the night and think, oh, dang, I blew it, don't worry. As Irene mentioned, we are here. By no means is this your only chance. Irene will be your primary point of contact, but I am here to also step in and support as much as needed from like a programmatic standpoint. Can you actually, Alma, do you mind moving to the next slide just so everyone can kind of see some of those resources? So you can see here we've listed Irene's email. We've also got our link to our website, as well as you'll see that there's our CWC website. That's kind of our broader kind of marketing, storytelling website, but that's also where you go and get certified. But our Visit HCHI website is a little bit more of our technical website. There's a lot of resources in there if you want to learn more about the model itself, general FAQs. We also have information on our employer support grant. And that's also where we will list information on our scholarship. So that's our technical website. So I just want to call out the distinction there. And we will follow up and send out this deck, as well as the resource packet that has the guide and the 2 forms that Irene talked through. So we will, within about a week or so, follow up with that full bit of information. And if anybody wants this recording, we also can follow up with that. That will not be automatically provided, but if you request it, we can send that to you. So just want to let you know there's plenty of resources and plenty of opportunities to learn more, as well as continue to connect with us. Irene, any last thoughts before we potentially wrap this up? I'm happy to give people time back because it's a Friday and we all love getting off things early. So any thoughts, Irene?
No last thoughts. Just again, as Laura stated, I'm excited for this process and for the partnership to work with you all. And I think that's about it. I hope to be hearing from you soon.
Wonderful. Yes, and thank you, Irene. Your partnership is so essential, and HCHI is just so grateful you're here. I'm going to pass this over to Chris to wrap us up and see if there's anything that I missed and close out this webinar.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ben and Irene. And thank you all for your participation in the question and answer session. As always, those were great questions and very helpful for us to make sure that we're serving you guys as best as we can. If you do have more questions, as Ben mentioned, please contact Irene at irene.ornelas@hchi.ca.gov. As a reminder, we will be emailing you guys with some of the follow-up material, and we appreciate everybody joining us today to learn more about the Certified Wellness Coach Designated Education Program. We are excited to be able to offer it as a part of our health workforce development efforts at HCHI and are grateful for your participation with us today. We encourage you to go to our website to discover all the great resources that HCHI offers. Thank you so much for attending. And with that, we conclude today's webinar. Have a wonderful day.